AIDS victims is the subject of Daytime with Sarah Kennedy, next on Thames. Almost time for Daytime, and after Daytime with Sarah Kennedy.
Welcome. Now, I imagine not too many daytime viewers go to bed with a British medical journal to encourage a little shut-eye, in which case you might have missed a recent article stating, in 5 years, AIDS will kill the equivalent of a jumbo jet load of Britons every month, unless we act now. Now, that's approximately 450 people a month. Now, how do you react to that fact? I mean, could you just be feeling, well, I'm not going to be one of those in that particular jumbo jet. I don't live in a big city. I'm heterosexual, always have been. I don't even know gay people. I can't get AIDS. Well, more uncomfortable news from the medical journal. Anyone who is sexually active is at risk, including innocent partners of the promiscuous. The "it could never happen to me" syndrome has come home to roost in Notting Hill Gate in London, where tonight it'll be decided whether Britain's first centre for AIDS victims should be opened in a disused school. A similar decision will be taken in Edinburgh later this week. Now, predictably, local residents are, how shall I say, split in their sympathies. So we'll be hearing from some of them and from Dr. Pinching about the state of the AIDS programme. Dr. Pinching, I know you're very busy. Thank you very much for coming in. First of all, though, we must explain to you about the Lighthouse project, and they're trying to set this centre up. Geoff Warburton, Mr. Getty has lent you £750,000. It's going to be a centre, but what's it going to be like? A hospice, a hospital?
Well, I think hospice and hospital are some words that have been passed around the press, which I think actually is the wrong word. It's going to be a centre for AIDS. Now, part of that, it's three main things. The first thing, it will have a residential unit for people with AIDS to go there after medical care where they need a place to die. It will be a place for people to go to if they've been recently discharged from hospital and they need convalescence. It'll also be a place for people with AIDS to go to if, say, a primary carer needs a break and they need someone to look after them. So that's one of its functions.
With the greatest respect, though, you're not a medical group. You're well-wishers, and I'm sure there will be medics there, but do you feel that there is any danger at all to local residents in Notting Hill?
Danger of actually catching the disease? No, not at all.
And why do you say that so strongly?
Well, that is based on what is actually medically proven as fact.
OK, thank you. That's your point of view. Let's come to the Notting Hill residents. Welcome as well. Hello, Juliet.
Hello.
You're going to talk for them just at this particular moment. The papers are telling us all the time, AIDS now is not a gay disease, it is a problem for all of us. We believe that women are dying at the same rate as men now in America, so should we perhaps be thinking this centre, we need more of them, not less of them?
Let me first put this right. We're not against the project. We are objecting to the way we're informed about the project, and we're objecting to the way this project's going to be run. It's an experimental project, it's next door to a nursery school, it's in the middle of a residential area. There are going to be initially 26 beds for terminally ill AIDS victims. They are not going to get medical care inside there, and that's one of my main concerns. The people voting for the project, the councillors, the local councillors, have openly admitted that they either didn't know there were going to be 26 beds there, or they haven't even bothered to read the planning application. One stood up at a public meeting and said she didn't know anything about AIDS. We feel this is a government problem. They should be acting and taking everybody's interests at heart. And until we find a cure, if Dr. Pinching's got his facts wrong, there aren't going to be many options open to us.
But surely don't you feel that there should be a need for a centre?
Yes.
And isn't it, to be absolutely brutally honest, not on my doorstep?
No, I feel that a centre like this should be in hospital grounds where the AIDS victims are going to get the full medical care that they need.
So, hospital grounds and government-sponsored and official stamped.
I mean, these AIDS victims, when they're in pain, they're going to have a doctor on 24-hour call. What if he's held up?
All right, thank you very much for that. One statistic I think that's really shocked me in the last couple of days is that in 5 or 6 years, according to the doctors, every family in Britain will have been touched by AIDS. Now, how you interpret touched, probably Dr. Pinching, you will tell us. Can I put two questions in one? Should we have more centres in the country? And I mean that, should they be in the country, as Juliet is implying, or should they be in towns?
Well, I think this is very much a community issue. The sort of care that we're talking about is care that would normally be carried out in a person's home by primary caregivers, lovers, families and so on, but where the needs are so considerable that you need a slightly bigger organisation. It is essentially an extension of home care, so it's not a hospital, it's not what we're trying to do in hospitals, it's something that is really an extension of community action.
Should it be in a hospital, which is a point that Juliet is making?
Well, I see a hospital environment as being inappropriate in a sense. We need something that is different from a hospital environment. A hospital has a certain function, it has a certain aura. That is not the sort of aura we have for people who want to die in the community among their loved ones. They don't want all the razzmatazz of hospital activity around them. It's inappropriate for that stage of disease.
Can you understand, though, that local residents would feel frightened and threatened?
Of course I can understand the concerns that people have. On the other hand, we have a lot of facts available about AIDS. Some of them have been published in government advertisements and so on and so forth, and some of the newspapers have got it right. And I think we can address any issues about contagion. It is not a risk for the community, and I think it's very clear that that is the case. We've got more than enough evidence about the spread of the AIDS virus, how it does and how it does not spread, to satisfy those concerns.
Can I take that point and take it to the residents? Does that make you feel happier? Dr. Pinching has said categorically there is no risk to residents.
I think it's a matter of accountability. I rang the area health authority on the 21st of August and they had not received notification, and apparently a letter asking for their comments on it had not been received. I think we all want to know what the actual accountability in the terms of registration is going to be. There's nothing about it in the application.
When you say registration, do you mean
registration as a nursing home or a residential care home, which it is. A hostel is not the same thing as a hospice, and it is not being asked for as a hospice.
All right, anyone, do you want to pick that up or do you want to pick that up? Who's the best one to pick that up?
I'd like to pick that up. I think these words being thrown around like hospital, hospice, hostel, these are not words that any of us at London Lighthouse have ever used. These are words that people have picked up probably from the press, from the media, so we haven't used these labels. I'd also like to pick up the point Juliet made about medical supervision. I don't know where people have got this from, but there is going to be medical supervision. It's going to be run in close association with the NHS. I mean, it will have medical supervision. That is actually fabrication, that it won't.
Right. I'm sure we will come back to this. I'd like to hear a little more from the audience, and can I put this question to you? Do you accept that AIDS now is not entirely a gay problem? What about you, madam?
Yes, I do. Because I have a young daughter and I'm frightened that perhaps she'll marry a bisexual man and they will have a child, and then both of them are going to be at risk. We don't know enough about it yet to know they would be with certainty, but I feel that it would be very worrying.
Have you ever talked to your daughter about AIDS?
Yes.
How old is she?
15.
15. What does she feel about it?
Well, at this age, of course, she's quite a moral child. She's got her own opinions, but I don't think she would bother with anyone if she thought they were bisexual.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. What do you feel?
The man in question might have used drugs at some point, not necessarily habitually, but if he's injected a drug at some point, he's also at risk of AIDS.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just no people. There are many people who use drugs who don't enter drug treatment. They may not have to enter drug treatment because their drug use is over, but nevertheless they carry that risk, and anyone who comes in contact with them sexually will also be exposed to that risk.
Thank you very much. Let me move it over here. Any more points of view from here? What about you?
Yes. Sorry, I think that AIDS is a problem that everybody's got to accept the responsibility, because it can happen to any one of us sitting here now.
We've even heard, though, government officials saying, well, drug users and gays, it's their own problem.
Well, I don't believe that. I believe if you get onto drugs or you've got AIDS, everybody's entitled to help, aren't they? And I think these two chaps are doing a fantastic thing. They've stood up and they've been counted, and I'm very proud of these two people I'm sitting next to. And I think more people should stop being frightened
Isn't frightened though because they're ignorant? Do we feel ignorant? What else do you want to know? Do you trust the doctors? No. We've got yes on one side and no on the other. I must admit, Dr. Pinchin, when you were last here, you were saying all this panic, calm down, calm down. And what's happened? I mean, I'm just expressing an opinion. Is that it has calmed down completely, and nobody seems to know anything more about it. Are you happy as a member of the medical profession about what's being done?
Well, of course, one can always wish for more, and I think we have to have more.
Have we had anything?
I think, well, the government's advertising campaign is as I regard it, a toe in the water. I think we need a lot more. I think we need television, we need radio, we need the media to be more accurate in what they say, in editorial comment, in storylines, in what stories they select. We need fictionalized accounts. We had a very good program screened earlier, which was a fictionalized account of a family facing this problem, which actually spoke volumes, and I would commend it to anyone who didn't see it. It's called An Early Frost. We need it to go into our song, our drama. We need it right across the board. We need it through our doors in proper, well thought out leaflets, etc.
Why don't you put the screws on the government and save money into television advertising? Because apparently in San Francisco, everyone in San Francisco is bored out of their brains with AIDS and all the advertising.
This is a danger that we lose the impetus. People lose the sense of urgency. We've got to maintain it as well as get the facts across. Certainly we are putting that pressure on, and many of my colleagues have done so, but we all have limited time to put this pressure on. We've got to look after our patients, we've got to do the research and everything else, and what I'm concerned is that people in the community aren't asking for more themselves.
So it's your fault now, ladies and gentlemen.
Basically,
ask for more.
I think that's exactly right, that
but
if you want more...
Who do they go to?
You write to your MP, you write to the Minister of Health, you write to the Chief Medical Officer, you write to the newspapers. How about a bit more concern expressed from the community? You'll get it if you ask for it.
That sounds
you
like
can't leave it to us.
Off, really.
No,
you're the one
I've been doing it. I've been doing it the last 4 years, and I think it's time somebody else came and helped me.
Well, come on, he's saying, this gentleman up here.
There's one historical point. 30 years ago, when I was 9, I wasn't allowed to visit a dying relation who had cancer, because there's a tremendous fear in the whole community that it's catching. When the first hospice was opened, that I know of, in my area in the Midlands, no one was allowed to go near it. We had meetings like this, except no television. We had radio programs, we had protest groups, because cancer is catching. And even now, if you talk to people in their 70s, there's still that edge of fear. And I think this is the situation we're in now. And unless we take the doctor's point and find out for ourselves, the fear is going to persist. The scare stories are going to persist.
Well, the doctors firmly put it onto you. You work up the sharp end as well. You've got some criticisms of the doctors, haven't you?
Yes, well, I've just recently left a private organisation in Swansea, a charity. My main fear was because they sent a so-called expert down who was very fair. He told us all about the pitfalls of AIDS, exactly how it's caught, and it really frightened us. But then later on, because the people that run this charity saw how we were affected, they called 2 experts of their own who just literally stood up and said, "Don't worry, AIDS isn't catching, nothing to worry about." And you know, it's just how can we understand exactly what is AIDS if the experts themselves don't agree on it?
Dr. Pinching is saying you've got to go and bang the drum and write to your MP. Have you done that?
No, we haven't done that.
This gentleman wants to say something. Have you?
Yes, I haven't actually, no. But I think perhaps one of the problems really with living in London is that London as a whole have lost their sense of community spirit. And it does seem from the way the interview and programme's gone so far that at least part of the problem is the fact that we have lost this and we're not talking to each other anywhere near enough.
Well, this gentleman is at the centre of this. This is Father Bill Kirkpatrick. You run an advisory centre in Earls Court, but more to the point, you've come back from America recently to find out how they're dealing with AIDS. What are they doing that we're not?
Well, to pick up the last point, certainly in San Francisco, there is a real sense of community, and all sorts of people are working in this field. Voluntary bodies as well as statutory bodies. You've got a hospice being set up by a church there, a family link set up by the Franciscans, plus the state equipping, I think it's a 56-bed ward in the large hospital there.
So much more money has gone in, obviously.
Oh, a lot more money has gone into it, and the people I was very impressed by the people of all courts who were looking after the sufferers of AIDS. And I'd rather use the word sufferer than victim. And I also like to say they have a life-debilitating virus, and get rid of these negative terms that you're going to die and this sort of thing. That brings a lot of fear to people. I did hear also in America there's a new term called afraids.
Afraids?
Yes. Acute fear regarding AIDS. And this is really what is predominant. People are afraid because they don't know enough about it. We're being brought close to ideas of mortality in a way that one has never done before. And I've been in healthcare for a long time. And it makes you look at all that. There's also, am I going to catch it, and this sort of thing, and where do we go from here?
And I'm also, sorry, pinning you down over, I gather that San Francisco, they issue fresh needles and fresh condoms. There's been a lot of criticism about this, obviously encouraging drug abuse, but at least it saves it going from one to another.
I was led to believe, I saw a project there, but I was led to believe it is the individual projects who are doing this, not the city itself. But I may be misled there, but certainly the project I saw, they were giving people who were living in the red light district and who were on IV, they were giving them bottles of bleach to syringe out their needles and what have you. They certainly were giving out condoms, but they also said this wasn't really official, but they just had a bowl on the desk and people just picked them up and went.
Can I move just for a moment onto so-called innocent victims? Because I'm sure there are people watching and they're thinking, well, she's been banging on about anyone can catch it, or we all have been. Can you elucidate on that, why now it seems it affects everybody?
Well, I mean, I don't think I like to use the word innocent or otherwise. I think our job is not to judge people. Certainly in my profession, that is not our job. We are there to care for those who come to us asking for help, and I think the community should be doing a bit more of that too. I think the reason why it is a concern for everybody is that we know that this is a sexually transmitted infection. It's an accident of social history that we see it as anything to do with homosexuality. And if we look at Africa, the Central African region is a terrible epitaph to the notion that this is anything to do with gay lifestyles exclusively. The African epidemic is heterosexually spread. The reason? Because in parts of Africa, people have more heterosexual partners, and more people in the community have those numbers of heterosexual partners, and that means there are more people engaging in sexual contact, therefore a more rapid spread. And that's really what it comes down to. It's simply the numbers game. And it is clear in New York, in London, in Edinburgh, wherever you like to look, that heterosexual spread is occurring in our community as well. It's spreading more slowly because lifestyles are different here, but they're not that different. And if people don't watch out, they're going to find that while they're busy pointing the finger at somebody else, this disease came up behind them. And I think the comments we heard earlier about concern for children who are coming up and developing their ideas about how to apply their own sexuality are critical. We have to educate the next generation to know how to engage in sexuality now that AIDS is around. It's a fatal, sexually transmitted disease. The way you go about sex is going to be different. And if we can't get it right, at least the next generation can.
Okay, so, sorry, but Bill, go on.
I think this is where the church has got to. We can not only write to the MPs, we can also write to and get our vicars to put education things on for, write to our bishops. The bishops still do have a say, but one thing that saddens me, the hierarchy of any church, and as far as I'm aware, unless it happened while I was away, have not said anything about this. There's been no support.
No leadership
from the church saying, you know, this is our problem too.
And of course not everybody goes to church and will want to listen to churchmen anyway. I know you dispute my word innocent victim. John Prothero, do you dispute my word innocent victim?
Well, it's a bit semantic, isn't it? I'm a victim, if you like, and so are the majority of severe haemophiliacs. I'm a severe haemophiliac. I lack the clotting factor in my blood that makes your blood clot. And I had to replace this with other people's, or product made from other people's blood.
And it wasn't good blood, was it?
The majority of the material that's been used in Britain for the last 10 years has been imported from the States. It's only in recent times that the material has been treated in such a way as to knock out the AIDS virus. But in the meantime, the majority of severe haemophiliacs in this country have developed the antibodies to the virus and carry it in their blood, as I do.
So you have the antibodies. Now, how has this affected your life?
Well, obviously fairly dramatically. It means you can't get life insurance, for example.
And how has it affected your sexual life?
Well, obviously it's totally changed it. As a heterosexual, especially in this day and age of the pill and things like that, you're used to not having to, well, you're lazy, you leave it up to the girl. But now, all the time, you have to use barrier contraception because that's the way that it passes heterosexual, as Dr. Pynchon has said.
Will you be able to get compensation for this fact?
Not so far, but the Haemophilia Society is looking at the possibility, in fact, of bringing an action against the Department of Health and the local area health authorities, who have the primary duty of providing the material that we've used.
Okay, thank you, John, for that. The hand's going up here. Yes, this gentleman.
Yes, sir, I would like to go back to a few points. One was what that gentleman from London Lighthouse has stated. He wanted to know where this term hospital, hospice, hostel come from. Well, I would like to say that London Lighthouse themselves have run their planning application as a hostel. The literature that comes out is called it a hospice. So which is it? And as I'd like to go back to the point that Dr. Pickering made. He is talking about knocking on your door of your MP for all local community people to get involved. We, within a mile of the centre, wasn't even informed that this was going on. We wasn't being consulted in any way whatsoever. So before we start talking to governments, let's talk to local people that's bringing these things into the area
You've
first.
got a lot of hospices and hostels and things like that in
Yes, we
Nottingham.
have.
Have you objected to those?
Never.
Never.
So you're objecting entirely because of AIDS?
No.
No.
No. We're objecting because I'm personally concerned that these aid victims are not going to get the proper care and attention inside that building. And having spoken to people petitioning for the project for half an hour on my door, I think they accept my view as quite valid. It's a cold building. It's got a car park outside it. It hasn't got any green grass. There's nowhere where these people can relax and have any care and attention
Would you like to answer that, some of you?
Yes, I would like to answer that. As far as the building being a cold building, yes, it is a cold building at the moment. I mean, the idea of London Lighthouse is to turn what is now an eyesore and a very ugly building into something that's actually pleasurable to look at. It is going to be landscaped in the front. It's going to have trees. It's going to have plants.
I don't mean to sound, but I think landscaping, we're talking about frivolous things. Now, is it going to be medically sound? I think this is the point that Juliet is making.
Yes, here again,
You
I
feel
mentioned
it
this
is?
before. I mean, it is. I mean, it will not
You
open
feel it
under
is?
any
Okay,
way.
what would you like to say?
That gentleman there mentioned cancer. A few years ago, it was taboo. There are people out there who are dying, and they're dying on their own. They're isolated. They do need our support and our help.
Thank you for that.
One point that I'd like to pick up on is the thing about working in the community and about education, because that's one of the strengths of the Lighthouse project. We're already doing a lot of counselling and training work with people, and with the base in the community in West London, which is where the problem is, we will be able to do more and expand our work and help people to take informed choices about their sexuality and their behaviour, and thereby help to stop the spread of AIDS.
There's an awful lot of this self-help, isn't there? Who would like more government help as well? Yeah?
Well, through the government and through the press, they're putting it across in so many different ways. Nobody knows what to believe from the press and the media.
Did any of you read these adverts? I know Mr. Hayhoe, if he's still in the cabinet tomorrow, how many? 100 million advertisements have been printed. Did you read this? It came out in March, April, July. Did any of you read it? How many people read it? How many people? Oh, quite a few people did read it. You happy with it? Wouldn't make me read it, I can tell you that. Dull as ditch water.
Yes, it needs to be improved.
Why weren't you in on it? Why didn't you design something better?
A lot of it was up to professional advertisers, and the medical information was inserted and modified at a very late stage. I think we need a lot more. We need it put across in ways that people will read and understand. And for some people, it may be necessary to use things like four-letter words in order to get the messages across. It may be necessary to use pictures. Now, we don't need to have to do that in a way that offends people, but some people don't understand this language, and they do understand words and pictures that are simpler. And if we don't get that information to them, then we are guilty of not informing them.
Vaccine. We read things in the press and we think, oh, there's hope round the corner.
Well, I think this is very damaging. I mean, I think, of course, it's very important the work is going on the development of vaccines, development of cures, but to see it in the headlines every few days, vaccine ready soon, I saw last week, is very misleading, because it indicates to people the sort of pill for every ill attitude that, oh, I can wait for the vaccine. We can't wait for a vaccine. 4 years in AIDS is a very long time, and that's the minimum time. So what we need is behavioural change now. Condoms
Celibacy?
work now.
Condoms now?
Yeah,
Celibacy?
sure.
No, that's ridiculous.
Well, if people wish to do it, they must make the decisions. I mean, every individual has to make the decision for themselves.
My husband goes up to Birmingham, he has a one-night stand, she looks clean, she's nice, he forgets all about it. He comes back, he gives me AIDS. I do it, I'm pregnant. Now, how on earth do you stop that? This is what I'm trying to get
Well,
at.
I think we have to have more discussion about what people are up to in their private lives, and I think that has to be done within families, by individuals, perhaps a more open discussion of sexuality within the family as well as within the community would help to protect all of us. And I think maybe if AIDS has some benefits, it means that we discuss issues about sex in a more realistic manner, without the taboos, without all the hoo-ha, just talking about facts.
You're actually trying to turn the clock back, though, from the 60s, which is very hard, especially with youngsters.
I don't think it's a question of turning the clock back. I think we've gone forward, we've learnt. It's a question of, if you want to take a moral stance or a stance about permissiveness, then maybe you regard that as clocks going back. I think we've learnt a lot, and I think we have to take forward the messages from the past.
Can I get a yes or no to this answer? You said one day, do we live in a caring liberal society?
At the moment, and the way that AIDS is handled, I fear we do not. I'd like to see it change.
Thank you very much, Dr. Finching, and thank you to everybody. So the development of a vaccine is not going to be instant. Lord Young for the College of Health hit the nail firmly on the head when he said, for this disease, prevention is not just better than cure, it's the only cure. Sorry to leave you with such a sobering thought. Goodbye, and thank you all very much. Thank you.
If you'd like to take part in the daytime audience, the number to ring is 01 484 2345. The lines are open now and will remain open until 4 p.m.